My main concern on Saturday night is when we have to ride with everything. And
Hanging out. Yeah, that's what I was.
So what a week. From riding single track and gravel roads out in Connecticut to riding through Brooklyn and bombing through Midtown Manhattan. But let's start at the beginning. So we met up on a Thursday in October around 10 a.m. at my place, and we headed out east. We decided to head to Albany, New York. We were heading ultimately to Saybrook, Connecticut, but this was a good stopping point, a city none of us had ever been to, so a different place to explore. The drive actually is fairly pretty, especially this time of year, one of the better freeway drives you can do from Akron. When we got there, we checked into the Airbnb and then got our bikes together and hit the streets to find some dinner. It was just around sunset, so we were pretty hungry. Found a good brewery, hit another brewery, then hit a cocktail bar for a nightcap. So pretty good first evening. In the morning, we got up and Aaron moved, and Brad, they moved the cars to a city deck since we were only staying one night. And then we hopped on our bikes to go exploring again. We rode through town and then to the Mohawk-Hudson River Trail, which is part of the Empire Trail, the bigger collection of trails through New York State. It was really pretty, right along the Hudson River, paved bike path. It's not nearly dramatic. I would later learn part of the Hudson River Valley as it is closer to New York, but still pretty fall ride. We just had a good time. Exploring, cruising, and chatting. Not too cold, just a little chilly. Albany itself, I was a little surprised with how hilly it was. Not that I should be surprised about anything, because I pretty much know nothing about Albany except it is the capital of New York and the terminus of the Erie Canal. But anyways, yeah, like very, very hilly, hillier than Akron. There's a lot of steep, punchy type stuff. But yeah, the trail is actually flat since it really just goes along the river. We rode it to where it kind of jumps out on the road, turned around and came back, cruised through the city, cruised through some neighborhoods and went to get some coffee. We also wanted to stop by a bike shop. Brad needed a couple things, and while we were waiting for them to open, we were cruising around Washington Park there, and Ben was riding behind Mike and noticed that he had, his wheel was really wobbly. Got up closer, and turns out he had two broken spokes. When we got to the bike shop, Downtube Cycles, Brad got what he needed, and the person at the desk, the woman at the desk, was really nice, and she was like, let me ask my mechanic if he could squeeze you in. The mechanic, while talking to us all about our trip and taped Mike's spokes together, said he was too busy to help us out. Take that for what it's worth. I mean, I understand everyone runs their business their own way. I certainly run mine my own way. But they didn't help us, but they did give us the phone number to another bike shop that they thought might help us, CK Cycles. I gave them a call, and they told us, yeah, bring it over, take the wheel off the bike, and just bring the wheel, and we can squeeze you in. So we rode over there, which was more in the suburbs. It was actually a little bit of a ride. I think probably 4-5 miles, if I remember correctly. Strava will be linked below, like always. But yeah, we got there, and the guys were really nice, a little more old school shop. The bikes were more our style, so maybe we gave the right people our money anyways. But so they said, maybe about an hour to get it together. So what we decided to do is me, Brad, Aaron, and Ben rode back to the cars, and me, Aaron, and Ben were just going to start driving to Old Saybrook, where our stop was for the next night, and Brad drive back to the bike shop to pick up Mikey. By the time we got to the car and Brad got back to the shop, they were ready to go. So they weren't even really that far behind us. Yeah, riding around Albany all in all, didn't get a ton of time to experience it, but had a positive, time there. We had good beers, we had good food, the coffee was good, neighborhoods looked interesting, and as mentioned, really interesting topography. So all in all, it was a worthwhile stop. The original idea was that it would get us way closer to where Nutmeg takes place, the ride we were ultimately heading to. Last year we had stopped in Syracuse, which was more of a midpoint, a little past the midpoint, and we did the same thing, cruised around, had coffee and beers, and had a good time. But then we had a little farther than what we would have liked to go the next day. So even with the spoke mishap and riding, I think, over 30 miles, we still got to Saybrook at a reasonable time. So before sunset, we went out, we got in the cars. Like I said, we got out to Old Saybrook. We were staying right on Long Island Sound, this little community of kind of like cottages. I guess they probably would have been cottage summer homes at one time that have probably been beefed up a little bit. Went over and watched the sunset. It was really, really pretty. Nice clear night. And then decided to do a ride to a brewery for dinner. I was really amazed because I put in the route, I saw the elevation, I saw the ride numbers, all seemed reasonable, but we get up to one hill and the route just turned off into the woods. A very Connecticut thing, as we discovered last year when me and Ben did a tour of the state after Nutmeg. You know, all of a sudden there's an old gravel road or an old trail. Sometimes even feels like a hiking trail that around here you wouldn't be allowed to ride on, and you totally are out there. One of the reasons I was saying this must be the case is I think it's just, and I talked to a friend who lives out there too, is it's just like every area has these kind of trails, so the trails being overcrowded by bikes just isn't an issue because you don't need to go to someone else's area to ride your bike. Everyone has it. Where here it's a little fewer and farther between to get stuff like that, and if you let people ride the metro park trails, hikers wouldn't be able to enjoy it. So I totally understand the distinction. But yeah, it turned out to be pretty cool that it was that kind of situation, and we got a few miles off-road. Went to a brewery, had a good dinner, had some drinks, came back, and then we was just getting our bikes ready for the next day, having a drink and getting everything set up. We were going to be leaving fairly early because we were going to have a number of miles to cover before we got to the actual start of Nutmeg, which would include this trail that we had actually hit through the woods that night. So we got set up, got ready to go, went to bed. I think we were trying to be off the next morning by like 8:30. So that was the end of the night. It was cool. We got to stay up. Our party size cyclist stayed with us, Andrew, who, even though we've met over the internet and we were at Nutmeg together last year, hadn't actually met in person. So fun to hang out with him. And I'm going to leave it there, and we'll end this video, and the next one in 2 days' time will be our experience out at Nutmeg. Thanks for watching. Yeah, peace.